That's the truth. I wasn't recording. Thank you for that. Now I'm recording. It's good for those who do not actually attend. But I think to attend is the best because you can ask questions, you can interact, what, you know. So I was saying, to say it's a local variable is because of the location that it will be on your program. But the concept, they are just the same. They are all variables. They are just memory locations, right? Or name of a memory location. So a variable declared inside the body of the method is called local variable. So if you have a method, right? Or what you call a function, what you used to call a function. In Java, you no longer have functions, we've got what we call methods. So we have replaced, the the function name with the method. So in object-oriented programming, we refer to functions as methods. So if you declare your variable inside a method or inside a function, we call it a local variable. Why? Because it is only available within that method or within that function. If you go out of that, you cannot use it, right? So maybe to make it easier, let me just have a simple program where I'll be saying, when I'm explaining on local variable, so I'm having a call. I'm having a call, just to wait a little bit. Ella, Mushekos, really. Okay, I'm back. Okay, I'm back. So I was saying, let me just see if I'm sure security sanded.
Yes.
Okay, there's a
Yeah,
hand by Taurai. There's a hand by Taurai Mnodawafa.
I think that was when I was asking if you are recording.
Okay, it's okay. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. That's why I said you can interject if you see that you've raised your hand and I didn't pick you because I'll be in a presentation mode. But anyway, I just wanted to have okay, let me just exit the presentation mode. Just want to have this up and running. I'm sure I have. Okay, I have it here. All right. I just want to create a simple program. Once it's a simple program, let me just name it simple, right? Let me click finish. I'm using the, so I didn't start from the very beginning. That's where we're supposed to talk about these things, the IDE. In this one, I'm using Eclipse IDE, which is just a text editor. It's just a text editor. So I need to create what we call a class. We're going to talk about classes, but for now, let's just take it as a class, right? Let me just name it simple class, and I have my main method just like that. Let's talk about all these things later. What we need for now is just a local variable, just like that. So this is what we call a local variable. I'm sure you know how to declare variables made from C, from C++. So here, if you just want to declare variable, you can say int a, just like this. And this one is a local variable. Why? Because it is inside the main method. This is what we call a local variable. If you try to use it here, if I try to put some value in it just outside the main method, I cannot access it. If I go here, you see that syntax error on token A, variable declared or what expected after this token, which means I was supposed to declare this variable, yet I declared it here. So I cannot use it outside that method. Why? Because it's a local method. It's a local variable because it is only available in the what? In that method alone, just like that. So that's what we call a local variable, right? So you can use this variable only within that method, and the other methods in the class are not even aware that the variable exists. A local variable cannot be defined with static keyword. So in other words, it doesn't make any sense to make it static Also, this one we are going to talk about static. We're going to talk about the static variables. What are static variables? Doesn't make any sense to make it static, especially if the method is not static. Yes, we are going to talk about it. But the basic thing is that if you declare it inside the method, it is only available to that method, just like that. So I can have another method. Let me just maybe say void maybe get integer, and just like this. If I have something like int a here, this is also another type of a local variable. It is only available in this method, which means I can use it in here inside this method, just like this, right? But if I try to go outside this method, I cannot use this variable. So it is only available here. So it doesn't also make any sense to make it private. Doesn't make any sense. Why? Because it is only available to that method. Why making it private? So doesn't make any sense to make it what? Private, just like that. It doesn't work. So local variables, no need of making them private. We show you those that needs to be marked private and why, right? And then maybe we can look at what you call the instance variable. So a variable declared inside the class, but outside the body of the method is called instance variables. It is called an instance variable because its value is instance specific and is not shared among instances. So there are some of the things, guys, that we are going to talk about later. But here we are saying there's what we call an instance variable. And for it to be called instance, it is because it is of instance specific. And it instance specific is of object type, right? It's of object type in the sense that it belongs to an object, not of object type, but it belongs to an object or it belongs to a class, something like that. So I'm going to talk about these classes, about these objects, but in simple terms, take the instance variable as the variable that you declare inside the class, but outside of any method. So if I come here and declare string name, just like this, we call it a what? We call it an instance variable. And also I'm sure there's what it is not declared as static. This one is wrong. It's supposed to, it is not supposed to be there. I can declare it static. I'm sure this one is wrong. I can mark it static as well. Yes, I can mark it static here. I can mark it static just like that. This what it means there. We are going to talk about this static what blah blah blah. But what I'm saying in general, any variable that you declare outside the method is called instance variable. So it is inside the class but outside any method. So they belong to the class. They are the properties of that class. So we call them instance variable. That's why I said before, these names are given just for the sake of their location, just for the sake of their location, just like that. So that's what we call an instance variable. I'm not going to talk much about it, but let's look at what we call instance variable. That's what we call instance variable. So a variable that is declared as a static is called a static variable, right? It cannot be local. You can create a single copy of the static variable and share it among all the instances of the class. So what it means, guys, is that if you declare a variable as a static, it is going to be shared among the objects of that class. What does it mean? If you've got a class called student, right? We've got a class of students, right? And every student, we know that you've got a specific name, right? Others, they've got same name, but others, they do not have the same name. So if you are going to have objects which are now the students themselves, and if you mark the name of the object, the name as static, it means that if anyone changes that variable, it is going to be the same for everyone. That person will be changing the name for everyone. So it's just that simple. So there are some instances where you need to have a shared memory. It's as good as a shared memory, this one. So all the objects will be sharing the same memory. So like you've got Taurai, Munoda Wafa, you've got Adiwana Shemtas or something like that. So if one of you goes and change the name or your name, it means you're going to change for everyone. So everyone will become Taurai, just like that. So that's what you call a static variable. And you can just put a static here if you want this one to be what? To be shared. I can demonstrate it, but I will ask you to ignore all the object, what things, because we're going to talk about it. Like here, if I come here and I declare an object of symbol class, something like that, um, let me call it what? Symbol. All right. So if I try to, let me just have two objects. So it's as good as we've got two students. If it is a class of students, just like this. And let me just put this one. Yeah, let me call S2 and S1, just like that. So if I just say S1 dot name, then I'll put something like this. And if I do the same for S2 dot name, and I put, who is that? Taurai, right? So what it means is that the name for this student one is Ego, right? And the name of student 2 is Taurai. But just because I named it static, when I put this one, the name was what? For S1 was actually Ezekiel, but it actually changed also for this S2. And when I change this to Taura, it means that the S1 name is no longer this one, but it's now Taura. If I try to print it, you see what I'm talking about. Let me just say this out. You see what I'm talking about. If I say S1 dot name, just like that. So if I print this, you are going to see that what am I going to get? You see, I'm getting Taurai for what? For the S1 name, of which the S1 name was supposed to be this one. It's only that when I changed this name of S2, I've actually changed also the name of S1. Why? Because they are sharing the memory, right? Why? Because of this keyword static. So that's the keyword static. That's why I was saying we're supposed to use it when we're doing thread. So if I remove it, you're going to see that the S1 name is going to change to this one. Why? Because now everyone is maintaining their memory, right? It's now separate. Everyone got their name, just like that. That's what it is. So if you want to use a static variables, that's how do they behave, just like that. That's how do they behave. So that's what you call a static variable. So this was just basic of how you can declaring my variables. I think it's just, these are just basic things that you can do. Declaring variables, if it's a string, all right, let me just remove all these things. If it's a string, it's just like that string name. If it's an integer, just like that. If it's a double, though double, these are just variables which takes floats or those numbers with with the commas, just like that. What else? What else? What else? Boolean. B, what else? So you can do all the variables that you may think of, in Java, just like that. This is how you declare variables. And if you want to initialize, just put this. So these are just basic. You've been doing it, so I'm not going to waste much of our time here. But this is how you declare variable, and you know that these are instance variable because of the location. They're outside of any method, but inside a class. And then if you declare it inside the method, it's a local variable. If you mark it static, it's now a static variable, just like that. So it's very, very simple. Maybe just need to read a little bit, but it's very, very, very simple. And these are words which appear like big words when you're hearing them, you know, when you're doing Java, but they're very, very simple. So let's just look at classes and objects. Let's just look at classes and objects. We've got what we call classes and objects. And this is the very, very important part um, of Java or of this tutorial that we are doing. Why am I saying so? There is no project that you're going to do without creating a class, right? You're going to creating a class. That's the first thing. Also, if you create a class, the next thing, you create an object. So most of the projects you need, they need you to or they require you to create an object. So I think it's very, very important to listen on this part of it. There's what we call a class and objects. And remember, Java is class-based and object-oriented programming language, which means you need to understand the classes. You need to understand objects, because everything in Java is an object. That's why we say it's an object-oriented programming language. So let's look at what we call objects in Java. So if we consider the real world, we can have cars, dogs, humans, etc. as objects. You are talking about real world what? Objects, right? We've got cars, right? So objects have got what we call a state and a behavior. If you look at a car, we can have the color as well, can have the make, the model, the type, whatever. Those are the properties of a car. But a car behave in some certain manner, right? It can start, you can start the engine, can drive it, whatever. What the behavior of a car, opening doors. Yeah, these cars are now very intelligent. Just press a button, it open the door, just like that. So we are saying every object have got what we call a state and a behavior. Look like a look at a dog as well. We've got type of dogs, breeds, and they've got their properties as well and behavior, right? You can talk of a color of a dog, can talk of the behavior, it can bark, something like that. So you're saying these are real world objects, right? So if you compare this one with the software objects, they are the ones that we call objects in Java, right? So they are just like real world objects. Why? Because they've got what? They've got a very similar characteristics, which are what? State and behavior, just like that. They also have what we call properties and behavior. And their properties are those instance variables that we're talking about, right? And their behavior are just the methods that we're talking about, right? So if you look at the program that we have done before, we're having a class which was encompassing everything. Everything was inside the class, right? And then after that, we are saying we have got properties which are instance variables, and we have got methods which are behavior. Does it now make sense what an object would be looking like? So an object is just those things, the properties or the instances and those methods combined together. That's what makes an object. That's what makes an object in Java, right? So we just call it an instance of a class. That's what we call a what? An object in Java. Just an instance of a class, or is as good as an example of a class or a type of a class, just like that. If you create a class called dog, you can have many objects of dog. Why? Because we've got many types of dogs. That's what it means. So every type of a dog will become now an object. If you go to cars, can have a BMW, can have a Toyota. Now these are objects of class what? Car, just like that. So they are instance of that class car, or they are examples of that class car. That's what we call an object in Java, just like that. So you are saying this is the object-oriented programming languages which support the concept of objects. Why? Because we need objects to be able to solve the real world what? Solution, the real world problems. So if we have got a real world object, we must be able also to present it in our programming language so that we can solve their problems. Dogs have got their problems. Let us be able to present them in our what? In our programming language so that we can solve their problems. Something like that. That's why you see that we have moved from the C programming, because those ones are procedural programming languages. They are not object oriented. So I need to add someone who is in the lobby. It's Benedict. You guys need to join early. I don't know what will be happening, but anyway, let's look at this. Here are some objects of the class. Okay, so let's look at the classes in Java. Let's look at the class in Java. We have said an object is just an instance of a class. So what is this class thing? What is this class thing? So a class in Java is a blueprint from which individual objects are created, just like that. So a class is an abstract description of objects. So take a class as the description of objects. Like what I've said before, if you look at the program that we have done, we're having some instance variables and the methods. So, and we have said the object is just the combination of those instance variable and methods, which means these things, they are inside a class, right? So a class, just like a description of objects, is the one which defines an object. There's nothing that you are going to see in an object which is not in a class, right? So when you're creating objects, you are creating a copy of every class, a copy of every class. If you are going to have 15 objects from a certain class, it means it's as good as got 15 classes in, and these now, they are now what we are just calling them what? Objects, right? As a single unit, just like that. But in other words, that's what we call a class. It's just an abstract description of objects, just like that. I think it can make sense that way. And this one is an example of a class dog, and description of a dog goes inside this. So if you are going to declare class, you are going to have class keyword as well, and then the name of the class. And let me just say it again, that let me just say it here. The name, sorry, okay, I was looking for the name of a class always starts with a capital letter, just like that. Dog with capital letter D. You are not going to get any error if you write it starting with a small letter. But the recommended way is that you start with a capital letter, and you mark it as well. So make sure that when you're creating a class, you start the name of the class with a capital letter, and all the inner words can also start with a capital letter, but everything is a small letter. Right? If you have a class called the print writer, P capital letter, W capital letter for writer, everything small letters. And if you want to put some space, they can only put an underscore. Otherwise, no space. It's just like that. So here's an example of a class dog, public class dog. This public, don't worry about it. We're going to talk about it later. For now, let's leave it there. This one, we call it an access modifier, but it's just there as a public. Then you've got the class keyword. So when you're declaring a class, you use the class keyword. And then we've got dog as a name. And then if you look inside this class, so we've got this opening and the closing. And then inside this class, we've got the instance variable, which are the properties now of a class, or the state of a class. And then for the behavior, which is void, barking, hungry, sleeping, these are the behaviors of a dog, which are in form of methods, just like that. So you can code that a dog can bark, maybe woof or whatever, what it can say or whatever. So it's just like, this is what we call a class in Java. This is what we call a class in Java. I think it's very basic, but I just want you to get it that way. So sometimes, if you look at classes, and classes also contain what we call data definitions. This is what we call the properties. So with data definitions and the data data definitions or data members, and the member methods as well. So these are the instance variables, are the data members of a class, just like that. And you put them at the very, very top. And then what follows are the methods, just like that. So before we talk about constructors, those that's what you call a class and an object. Now the issue is, if you are asking you at an exam, we might ask you to define a class. What is a class? And maybe we might ask you to define an object, and also be able to distinguish between these two things. Maybe you need to know, how can you declare a class? How can you declare a what? A variable, and not a variable, an object. And how do they differ, right? And if you look at it, the difference just very simple. A class, this now is the blueprint, just the blueprint where all objects are created. And if you look at it, it have got methods and instance variable. The object now is now the instance of that class, right? And you can declare it using a new keyword, whatever. What we are going to do, I'm going to show you how can you declare it, and just like that, you've managed to differentiate these two things, right? Just want to put it in that simple. And then there's what we call a constructor in Java. And this is not a new thing, guys. This is not a new thing. I'm sure you've done constructors in C, in C++, and they're just the same. Also, you have done methods, and a constructor is a method. That's the first thing. And then the next thing, why is it called as a constructor? It's a method. That's what we need. That's what you need to know. Just like that. Can we make sure that you are on mute? Okay. So I was saying, if you look at constructors in Java, a constructor is a block of code similar to the method, and it is called when an instance of the class is created. So a constructor is a method. That's the first thing. And it is always called when you are creating an object. That's the instance of a class. So whenever you're creating an object, you'll be calling another method, and that method is called a constructor. So it is a special type of method which is used to initialize the object. That's why you're calling it a constructor, right? We use it to initialize the object. If you are creating your objects, you want the object to be actually fed with the primary values, or those values that you think, if even I didn't put some new values there, they can work, or those that you want. Just imagine, maybe your program does require that the value of a certain variable must be always positive, and then you didn't initialize it, and maybe there's a minus something there, right, in that variable. When you're running it, you are going to give other people negative salaries, and you do not want to do that. So you can actually give it something that you think, okay, for basically let it have a 0 or whatever that you need to put there. So that's where the constructor comes into play. So every time an object is created using the new keyword, at least one constructor is called. That one is something which is always happening. Whenever you create an object, a new a constructor is going to be executed just like that. And that constructor, you might not define it, but Java will do it for you. So every time you create an object in Java, you need to know that there's a constructor which is going to run, there's a method called constructor which is going to run. And that one is called a default constructor. There's what we call a default constructor. So there are rules of creating constructor. The first thing, so there are rules of creating methods, and there are rules for creating a constructor, which is this one, a special method. So there are 3 rules, and they are just like this. Constructor name must be the same as its class name. Simple. Hakuna chinozonzi constructor kana zita racho risiri the same with the class name. Let's make sure that the class name and the constructor name, they are the same as they appear. And then a constructor must have no explicit return type. There is no need, or it is illegal to mark it maybe int or double. So it doesn't return any type, even void. Do not put even void. It doesn't return anything. So if you have got a class called simple, just simple, then something change or just like that. So a Java constructor cannot be abstract, static, final, and synchronized. In other words, no access modifiers, and these as well, these other modifiers. There's no need of putting all those things on a what? On a constructor, just like that. So these are just the rules. And then let's look at the types of these Java constructors. Don't worry, guys, we're going to do this. There's what we call, there are 2 types of constructors in Java, which are default constructors and parameterized constructor. So before we look at all these things, let me just go here and maybe let's just demonstrate a little bit. Let's just demonstrate a little bit on this one. We have got this one here. This is a class. To those who are new to it, this is what we call a class. If you look at it with public here, and I've said, please, for now, let's ignore this public, but it's an access modifier. So then there's the class keyword, and then a symbol as the name of the class. And this is what I'm saying, you need to give it a capital letter S here, because it starts with the capital letter. If there are other inner words like simple class, you need to put C capital letter and everything small letters, just like that. The error is just because this one is a public class, so it must be the same as the name of the name of the what the name of the file itself. The file is simple.java, so the public class must match the name of this file, just like this. So we're going to talk about it, but this is what we call a class. This is the opening and the closing of a class. What comes in here, these are the instance variables at the top, and then these are the methods that we are talking about. This is a method, right? And a constructor is also just like this, but only that it must not have all these things, and the name must be the same with that of a what, of a class, just like that. So maybe I can have something like string name, right? To make it make sense, let me just change this one to student, right? Let me just I need to change or to rename the file to this so that it can match. You see, this is the file now is what is a student, just like that. I need to add some people. Let me just try to add some people in here. Okay, so what I was saying is that this is now a student here to Java. So I can have a student, have got what we call a name, right? So this is a instance variable or the property of this class, right? So this is the property of a student. A student can have name, and also a student can have what? Age, int age, right? Just like that. So let me just, I just want to demonstrate on these constructors. What are these constructors? So I've said first you have got what we call a default constructor, which is a no argument constructor in other ways. So a constructor is called a default constructor when it doesn't have any parameter. There's what we call a parameter. So if you are passing something, these are what we call parameters. Those things that you pass to a method, right? Those are things that we call parameters. So if it doesn't have any parameter, we call it a default constructor, and it is the one that is created for you by Java. So if when you're creating a new object and you didn't create any constructor, that one will be provided by Java. So example of a default constructor, what is the purpose of a default constructor? The default constructor is used to provide the default values to the objects like 0 now, etc, depending on the type of that. So if you look at this example, the class is bike1 and the name of that method or of that constructor is bike1, and it's just the same as this. And then here there are no parameters, just like that, and you're printing something. So maybe I want to provide the default values for the name and age when I'm creating this, right? For now, for that, I do not need a default constructor, but I need a certain constructor. But I can do that. If you look at this, let me just create a new object. This is the way you can create an object of a certain class, right? Now I'm going to a main method. That's where everything starts, right? When I execute. So I'm just going to create an object of class student. So if you want to create a project, an object of class student, it's as good as you're creating this variable called name, but only that this one is now of a type class and it's an object. We call it an object. So I will use the name of the class student, and then I'll put the name of that object. Let me call it S1, and then I will use the new keyword, right, to create the object. This new right here. And then what follows next is just a constructor that I will be invoking. And that is the thing that we are talking about. And this is method calling that we are doing. And we are calling a constructor. That's what is happening there. So just say student, this one is goes to new student, just like that. So this is a constructor that we are calling, but this constructor didn't create it, but Java will provide it for us because we said this is a default constructor. It comes already with the Java. Java can actually do that for you. If you didn't create it, Java will do it for you, just like that. So maybe just in case, if I say I want to print out, let me just print the students, right? I want to print s1.name, right? I didn't put any value here. So if I try to run this one, I'm going to get a now. Why? Because I didn't initialize anything there. What if I want something to be there when I actually created this object, right? So you can use this default constructor. It's very, very simple. You can use this default constructor. Here, let me just say it's a class student, right? Student, and then just like this, right? This way. And I can now say name, and I'm referring to this name. Because it's an instance, I need to use this dot name, and then maybe at first I want this to be second, just like this, and I'll terminate. Now, if I run this, you are going to see this one here. How is it happening? Yet I didn't code this one, I just put it here. So what it means is that this constructor is being called here. So whenever you create a new object, remember there's a constructor which is going to be executed. So if you didn't provide one, the Java will provide for you. Just like that. It's as simple as that. So I can use this one. This is what we call a what? A constructor in Java, but this one is a default constructor. So the other one that we call a parameterized constructor, it takes parameters. That's the parameterized constructor. So which is a specific number of parameters, and it's called the parameterized constructor. Why use the parameterized constructor? The parameterized constructor is used to provide different values to distinct objects. However, you can provide the same values. So maybe you're going to create two variables, three objects. Like here, if I do not use a parameterized constructor, let me have another object. Maybe let me call it S2, right? You see what we are talking about. It's very fun. It's very fun. If you look at it, if I put here, if I put S2 here, you're going to see that these guys, student one and the student two, they're going to have the same name. Why? Because we are just using this default constructor. But if you want to give them different name, you need to make this one a parameterized constructor, right? Where I can have this variable and I will be passing the name, right? I'll passing the name to this new method that we're creating, which is the parameterized constructor, and I'll pass this name, right? And there's something here that you need to see, guys. Maybe for the first thing, let me just put any there, and then we can talk later about it. It might be confusing others, all right? So when I'm creating this, I need to pass their name, right? And let me go with the Taurai. I'm sure I have Taurai in this lecture. Let me go with the Taurai. Yeah, right. Just like that. So if I run this one, we will now have these two different names, Ezekiel Taurai. Why? Because I passed this when I was creating this new object, and then it will come and invoke this constructor, and it will pass Ezekiel to this variable n, and then this n will be passed to this object or to this property, which is this name, just like that. So whenever I say s1.name, I will get this, and if I do the same for Taurai, I will get Taurai. Just so these are just the purpose of having a constructor in your in your program. That's the purpose of having a constructor. Maybe when you're declaring a new object, you want to pass a certain value to the parameters, or not to the parameters, but to the properties of that object, just like that. As simple as that. That's why we need constructors. I don't know if I've got some questions for constructors or for every that we've been doing. I think it's good to have some questions if we've got questions or some comments. You know, some are not questions, but there are some comments or some additions. Seems like everyone is okay with it. I don't know. Are you okay with this, guys? Are you okay with this? Hmm?
Yes, they were okay.
Okay, so it's okay. If so, it's okay.
Yes, we are following, sir.
Okay. Just want to check with you. Sorry, I'm looking at I was streaming this. I don't know what's happening there. Okay, it's okay. So I'm sure, guys, Yeah, good with these things. I'm just trying to make sure that you get it correct. So there's something that I didn't tell you on constructors. Let's look at the difference between a method and a constructor. Remember, I've said a constructor is just like a method. It's just a method. So why are we differentiating from a method? So a constructor is used to initialize the state of an object, while a method is used to expose the behavior of an object. Remember, before you said a method is just the behavior of an object. So a constructor is used to initialize the state of an object, just like that. So a constructor must not have a return type, but a method must have a return type. That's why you see that if you do not put a return type like int, boolean, what, you put void. Void is also a return type, which is nothing there. It will be returning nothing, but it's a return type. But for a constructor, you do not need that as well. A constructor is invoked implicitly. What it means is that you do not need to call a constructor, just invoke it when you're creating a new object. So it is invoked implicitly, but the method is invoked explicitly. That's why there's, if when you're doing C++, you're saying you do function declaration and function calling. That's what it is here. You do method declaration and method calling. But for constructors, no. So here for method, you need to do it explicitly. So the Java compiler provides a default constructor if you don't have anyone or any constructor in a class, but the method is not provided by the compiler in any case. It's you who declare that method. Also, the constructor's name must be same as the class name, but the method name may or may not be same as the class name. So it's not a requirement for a Java method to be the same as the class, but for a constructor, because person is our new randit, you need to do that. So that's all on classes and objects. So guys, if we have got questions on classes and objects, can we ask them maybe now? Can we ask them maybe now? If you've got questions on classes and objects, if I do not have a hand, it means everyone is good with all this, which means therefore everyone is good with all this. So let's look at the next slide, which are access modifiers. I will try to make sure that shorten this thing so that we can move fast. Let me just close this slide. Do not need anymore. So let's look at this one, which is access modifiers in Java. Let's look at access modifiers in Java. So what are access modifiers in Java? So access modifiers are keywords that can be used to control the visibility of fields, methods, and constructors in a class. Guys, if you do not understand access modifiers very correctly, you run into a problem when you are doing inheritance, polymorphism. Why? Because we'll be using these things, right? So access modifiers are keywords that can be used to control the visibility of fields, methods, and the constructors in a class. So in other words, you can hide your fields. Maybe remember this, you create a class, right? And inside this class, you can create a lot of objects, right? It's up to you if you want these objects to share, you know, these fields or to share this data, right? If you want them to share, it's fine. You can do it with access modifiers. If you do not want to share, or if you do not want them to share, it's fine. You can do it again with access modifiers. So you can mark them private, you can mark them public. So those keywords that you'll be using, public, protected, default, private, is only there to actually control the visibility of fields and the methods, just like that. So Java has two types of modifiers, the access modifiers and non-access modifiers. Excuse me, the non-access modifiers, those are abstract that you put, they're abstract. Yeah, it's one of the non-access modifiers. But mostly here we are going to do these access modifiers. Because for non-access modifiers, we mention it when we go to the to that topic. Let's look at the 4 types of access modifiers. We've got private, which is the access level of a private modifier is only within the class. it cannot be accessed from outside the class. And then we've got the default. The access level of a default modifier is only within the package. And the package, remember, in Java is just like a folder. So we are saying if you've got classes which are in the same folder, they can see each other if you just mark them default when you're creating them. So it cannot be accessed from outside the package. So if you create a variable and mark it default, it can be accessed if you are within the same package. But if you try to access it outside the package, you're going to have a problem, right? It will be not visible. That's what it is. So if you do not specify any access level, it will be the default. So in Java, there's no way you are going to write default int something. No. But if you just say int a, it means that a variable that you've created have got a default access modifier. So if you do not put an access modifier at any method or at any variable, it means Java will give one, which is the default access modifier, just as simple as that, right? So this the protected, which is the access level of a protected modifier, is within the package as well, and outside the package through child classes. So you are saying protected is within the class, within the package, but you can actually inherit it if you are outside the package. So that's the technical difference between the default and the protected. You can access it, or it can be visible through inheritance that we are going to talk about later. So here we're not going to talk about it. So if you do not make the child class, it cannot be accessed from outside the package. And then there's got the public, which is the access level of a class. Modifier is everywhere. It can be accessed from within the class, outside the class, and within the package and outside the package. So for security issues, do not mark everything public when you're creating these things. You need to well think if these things needs to be marked public or whatever that you're doing there. All right. And then these access modifiers, this one is just in short, it summarizes everything that we've been talking about. For these access modifiers within the same class, yes, if it is private, default, protected, public, we can access it. But if you are within the same package, within the package, for a private, you cannot access it. Default, yes, you can access it. Protected, you can access. Public, you can access. That's why we have got this yes, yes, yes. Outside the package by subclass only, right? For private, no. For default, no. But protected and public, you can do through inheritance that you are talking about. And then just outside the package without inheritance, you can only access public, just like that. I don't know if it is making sense for this one, but these are the access modifiers, right? These are the access modifiers. I want to monitor this. I think I have the issue of network. I think my bandwidth is not supporting that. All right, so if I can mark this private, I can mark this one private string, and what else? Private int, or don't I have a specific? Sorry, I'm looking for access. Is it not about access modifiers? Maybe I've got a good example. Yeah, I have this one. I think it's a good example which shows. All right, this one, and another package which shows. All right, and the test class. All right, let's just use this project. This is just a project with the two packages. These are two folders, right? Take it as what? As folders, just as simple as that. These are two folders. I've got the student Java, student class, because if you see student.java, it means this one, it's a class called what? Student, right? Public class called the student, and it have got this public string name called this one, and we have got this again, this test class inside another folder. So they are in different folders, just like this, all right? Let me just run it and see what we were doing here. All right. So this one we're trying to demonstrate, I was trying to demonstrate the issue of access modifiers. So if you look at this, there's this class called assignment, right? And there's this variable assignment string name is equals to assignment one. If you look at it here, we've got this keyword called public, right? And we've said if it is public, so we've got this class, they are in the same package, right? Test class and assignment, they're in the same package. If you look at, they are in the same package. Class here, assignment, and test class here. They are in the same package or they're in the same folder. So let's look at how these access modifiers affect this. So if you come to this test, so I'm going to create, I've created an object of class assignments. Let's ignore this one. Let's ignore this one. Let's look at this class assignment and test these two things. They're in the same package, right? And we are actually trying to access this name. And we can access this name, and this name is this one, this variable that we are accessing. We are accessing it. Why? Because it is marked what? Public here. What if I change it and mark it private? What happens? If I mark it private, I'm going to have an error here. Why? The field assignment.name is not visible. So you see the access modifier is actually changing the visibility. Is there just to expose or just make something private or something like that? I don't know how can I explain it, but that's what it is. That's what's happening. So these are two classes which are in the same folder. So if you go to this one, we are saying if you are within the same class, but we are in this one, we have two classes which are within the same package. If it is private, you cannot use it. Whether you've created the object, because if you look at, we are creating the object of class assignment, which is this one, and we are trying to access this name, and it can't. Why? Because it is private. What if I remove this? If I remove this, that's where you have a default access modifier, and the error is gone. Why? Because here, if it is a default access modifier, you can access it. What if I mark it protected? It's just the same, right? If I mark it protected, it is going to work fine. Why? Because these classes are in the same folder. Is it making any sense? They're in the same folder. You see the difference when you are using a class which is in another folder, right? And then it works the same with public. Then let's look at if it is outside the package at this one. Let's look at if it is outside the package. I ignored these two things because guys, it's just if you mark it private, default, protected, and public, if we are in the same class, it will be available to every method or whatever that want to use it. So let's look at the issue of this one, student class and this test class. So I want to look at this student class and this test class. So if you look at these two things, they are in different folders. Why? Because we've got package one and package two. So we've got folder package one and folder package two. So they are in different packages. So you have got test here and student here. And this test is trying to use this class student and its properties. So we want to see what will happen. So if we, let me close the assignment class, we no longer need it. If you look at it, this one is public. That's why we are accessing it here and use this name. If you look at it, if it is outside the package, if it is public, you can access it. Let's see if we make it a default one. Let's see if we can make it a default one by removing this. What is going to happen is that, is it going to work? If I save it this way, it's not going to work. I'm getting an error. Why? Because I need to change the visibility. So if you mark it default, it will not work. If I mark it protected, private, it will not work, just like that. Protected. So this is what it is with the access modifier. You are going to see it when you're doing inheritance. It is very important to know how these things works, right? How these things works, just like that. So I can only access this one through inheritance if I wanted to. I can only access it through inheritance using protected or public, or maybe if I want to use protected, I need to do it through inheritance. Otherwise, I need to mark it public for it to work. If it is outside what? If it is outside the the folder or the package. So you're seeing this, guys. If you are outside or these classes are in different packages, you can only use a public. Otherwise, and then if with outside the package by subclass, if you want to do it through inheritance, you need to make sure that you use protected and public chat Safaran. And if they are within the same package or these classes are within the same class, you can use default protected and public to make them visible, but otherwise you can say private. So these are the benefits of object-oriented programming, of using these classes, because you can actually hide some of the data from other classes, just like that. I don't know if I've got some questions um, on these things. So if you are within the same class, this is what we're talking about. You can just access, even it is private, you can just use it here, just like that. You can actually use it in any method. They can access it just like that. You can use public protected just like that. So I don't know if I've got questions on this one. I don't know if I've got questions on this one. I don't know if I've got questions on this one. I don't know if I've got some questions. Sorry, I need to. So, okay, so if I do not have questions, guys, let me just go on to the next slide, which is operators in Java. These are the things that you know, guys. You know all these things. Is there anyone with the challenge with the operators in Java? Anyone with the challenges with the operators in Java? Seems like everyone is okay with them, right?
Yeah, I think operators with 1 1, so they are easier.
Okay. Thank you for that. So you can go through all these things, guys. Operators for arithmetic, assignment operators, comparison operators, logical bitwise. So in this one, you're talking about if it is arithmetic operators, so that addition, subtraction, division, those basic arithmetic operators, and the shortcut of what these are just the same. Comparison, greater than, equal sign, what, less than, what, you can use with them with if and what, these are the basic things. I'm sure we do agree on this one. Let's look at the flow control, the way we use the if statements, all those things. Let's just look at these basic things. I call them basic because I know I've done them before. So let's look at if statements in Java. So if a statement in Java is used to test the condition, it checks Boolean condition if it is true or false. So there are various types of if statement in Java. There's the if statement, the if else statement, the if else, if ladder, and the nested if statement. And I'm sure you've done these, guys, in C programming, in C++, in PHP. You know these things, but maybe in Java, you just need to refresh or something like that. So Java if statement, the Java if statement tested the condition, it executes the if block if condition is true, just like that. So the syntax just the same. That's why I was saying Java is just straight from C and the C++. So I need to grab some more. So I was saying if the Java if statement is just like the C and the C++ if statement. So just look at it. If age is greater than 18, then do something. So maybe what I just need to do here, let me just quickly dive into this. So what I'm just going to do here, I have age, right? And in age, I'm going to put something like 20. And I'm going to say if. So what if does it just take a Boolean condition, right? Or a condition which results in a what? In a Boolean, which gives true or false, right? So here you can say if true or if it is false. So if it is true, it is going to execute what will be inside here. So it was going to say your age is greater than what? 18. So I'll print maybe age is greater than 18. If I run this, I'm going to get the age is greater than 18. Why? Because I've said if it is what? If it is true. So in other words, something that we're going to put there must be resulting to true or false, so that it can either execute the if statement block or not. So I can put if false there. All right, if false, let me see what I'm going to get there. If I run this, I'm going to get nothing. Why? Because I've put what? False here. So in other words, everything that we're going to put here must be resulting into a true or a false. So I can say if age, but which age now I need to specify. I want to say student one age is greater than 18. I need to say that your age is greater than 18, just like that. Your parents your age is greater than 8. Why? Because I've got 20 here as the initial value. So if I put 10 there, I'm not going to get any. So this is the if statement. So if you look at it, it's just the same as the one that we know. This is just a statement to print to a screen, just like that. So this is an if statement. So you can have an if else statement, and then the else condition will be there to say if this one is not true, so if this one is false, then we run what is in the else part, right? Run what is in the else part. So let me just look at this as your age is less than 18, right? Just like this. I think this is very, very simple and basic. So you see your age is less than 18. Why? Because this one is false, right? So it's just simple. If this one is true, it will run what is in the if statement. If I put false here, it is going to run what is in the what? In the else statement, just like that. So what you put on the if statement must result into either true or false. That's the if else. And you can use it. Maybe if you want to do the grading system or whatever, you can use the if else statement, if else, if what lad. So that's how you use the if else statements in Java, if else statement. Then the if else if ladder is when you have got an if and you have got some other condition that you want to test, which is the else if, and you have an else. So guys, it's not illegal to just put an if here without an else. You can just put an if and you just continue with your code. Maybe you just want to test something. If it is true, you do not mind on the else part, right? But also if you put an if, it must be followed by an else, just like that. Otherwise, it will be followed by an else if. So I was saying, let me just see if I've got an example here. An example was saying number means it was testing if the number is positive or negative, right? So it was testing if the number is greater than 0 or it is less than 0, and if it is not both, then it's that number is what is 0, just like that. So if you look at this, can have in here, let me just say here, int number. Let me just put a 20 there. And then we want to check if this number is what? Is it positive or not? So the first thing was to check if a number is greater than 0. We say the number is positive, just like that, right? The number is positive. And then here we do not put if, else. We do not put else, just put else if. What it means, we are going to have another condition and we are going to check if number is less than 0, just like that. Let me just add someone who's in the log. I want to admit someone. Right? So we're going to check if the number is less than 0. We will say the number is what? Is negative, right? All right. Just wanted to remove this one quicker. Right. We just say the number is negative. So after doing this, I can check this and I can see the number is either positive or the number is what? Is negative. If I put -1, I'm going to get the number is negative. But if I put a 0 there, I'm not going to get anything. So I can put now the else part, right? The else part. So an else can either follow an if statement or can follow an else if statement, just like that. Otherwise, else are consuming it. So I can print out this out. The number is 0, right? And I'll get a 0 there, just like that. So it's not that simple, guys. It's not that simple. It's just simple as this. So if you, what else? You can have an else if you are not limited. You can have a lot of else if. Else if, else if, else if, else if. Up to a man or good and it. Just like that. So this is the if statement in Java, just like that. So I try to shorten it. Also, you can have the nested loops, the nested if conditions. Nested if conditions is just having an if inside another if, right? Just having an if inside what? Another if. You can have this one for this example. If age is greater than or equal to 18, and if the weight is greater than 50, then we can say you are eligible to donate blood. So the first condition was to check if the age is greater than 18 or equal to 18. That's the first condition. The second condition, you can check if the weight is greater than 50. So this is what we call the nested statements, right? So the first thing was to check the age there. Maybe if the age, maybe let me say, maybe I need a local variable for age. All right, let me just use those which are already there. So if your age is greater than 18, and then what else? We need your weight there. Yeah, let me just use an int or double, whatever it work. Weight. Let me just put 60 there. And I will say if your weight, and then because we have this another condition that we need to test, we can have another if condition here. Then I can have S1 dot, we need to wait if it's greater than 50. we can say you are eligible to donate blood, just like that. You are eligible to donate blood. This is what you do. It's very, very simple and very, very fun if you do enjoy to do these things. Why am I getting nothing here? What was in weight 50? Okay, the age is actually less than 18. I need to put maybe a 20 there to get something, right? So these are the nested if statements. You first check this one and then you check this one. So if both they are true, we can do this. That's the main thing. So guys, instead of doing this as well, you can have or you can combine conditions on if statements. It's very, very important to know that. Instead of doing this, you can also have an end. You've been doing this in C programming, what you can have this one where you combine these, you see. So do have a nested if conditions, you can just have your two conditions here, unless if you've got three whatever you want to do. But this is what you can do. Simpler way of doing it. Just like this. It will check this one and this one. If they are both true, it can do. But you can put also an OR there, which are these pipes. Yes, on an OR operator there. What it means, if one of the two is true, it will just execute, which means if I put a 10 here, like what it is, it can execute and it can give you that you are eligible to donate, but which is wrong. So you do not need to use an and you do not need to use an or there. You need to use an and, which is these two animals there. So this is an if statement. I don't know if I've got some questions. Okay, there's a hand by Tadiwana Shemtas.
See, I don't know if my question is still valid, but ndachitobvunza kuti maif statement aya question inge yakatotaura here kushandisa if or unotongoona wega nekureason.
Okay, thank you for that. What it means is there are questions which are suitable to use in if statements, and there are questions which are actually suitable to use a switch statement. So it's up to you. It's not a must to use an if statement unless otherwise. If the question is asking to use an if statement, you have to use an if statement. So it's up to you to see that is this question asking you to use an if statement or which one is better for you. Just like that. So it's not a matter of that we are going to force you to use an if statement. If it happens, it happens. You need to be able to use the if statement. So it's not a good thing as well to ignore some parts of flow control. Like for me, I'll just go with the switch statement. So I do not need to learn the if statement. It's not a good thing to do so. Why? Because you are not doing it for an exam, you are doing it for the future, right? You are going to have some programs, right? That you are going to create to softwares, whatever. Then, so sometimes it's good to master everything. Just like if you look at loops, you can use a while loop or of a loop. So some of the things you just need to make sure that you are comfortable with everything that we are doing here, just like that. So I think you are well answered on that one. You are well answered on that one. And then, because if you look even the one that I was talking about of grading system, you can use the if statement. Also, you can use the switch statement, just like that. So it's up to you to choose which one do you want to use and which one is simple to you. But my cry is that make sure that you know everything. You know everything. Okay, so let's move on to. I'm not going to this. There's nothing more. There's nothing more. Let's look at the switch statement. I'm trying to move faster so that we can finish all this. Next tutorial, we will finish everything, or we just we start at OOP and finish everything. All right, so Let's look at the Java control flow on the switch statement part, the switch statement. If you look at it, we just have 3 slides. Why? Because this is just the same thing that we have been doing. The Java switch statement executes one statement from multiple conditions, right? So there can be one or any numbers of case values for a switch expression. The case value must be of switch expression type only. The case value must be literal or constant. It doesn't allow variables. So what we are saying is, if you are given multiple conditions and you only want to execute one, you need a switch statement, right? You can use a switch statement. And these are the properties of a switch statement. And we are going to talk about them when you are doing the practical so that you can see what we're talking about. So the case values must be unique. As make a sense with the cases are because which one are we going to choose from those cases? That's the main thing there. So each case statement can have a break statement, which is optional, but it is optional. It is optional to put a break, but if you do not put it on inner switch, on inner case statements, you're going to have a problem because it can run maybe almost all of them. So the last one is the one which is actually optional to put a break on those cases, but you can leave it. You are not going to get any error, but the error is the runtime error that you are going to get. Why? Because the application will misbehave. That's the error that you're going to get. But otherwise, you're not going to force it to put a break on every switch case. So the case value can have a default label, which is optional as well. So it's not a must to put a default case, just like that. So this is an example switch, the expression there, and then if you look at it, we've got the expression. And after that, we've got what? This X, Y, and these are cases. We've got case X and case Y. And you put your code in here, and you've got a break, your code in here, a break, your code. And if you look at the default within the break, the default boss is the last case, just like that. So this is the switch statement. Can I just demonstrate quickly here on a switch statement? Like what? All right. Let me have some cases, right? We've got number is 0. Let me name it something like choice. Like you can ask the user, choose which choice, which case, right? So I can have switch. Just very, very basic and very fun, very simple. You've been doing this. So I'll put choice. So if I put choice here, it means every case that I must put must be of type choice, which means I need a case of type integers, right? So if I'm going to have a case, it is going to be a case 1, and I put a full colon to demarcate the starting of this case. And I'll put everything that I think is for case 1 under here. After that, I'll break. So let me just put for case 1, let me just put maybe this out. So there's a shortcut for printing out, for printing to screen. Right, so I'll just say case 1, right? Nothing much there. Then let me just, and I'll break. Let me just leave this break so that we can talk about it, so that you can see the effect, why we need this. Then let me have a case 2. This is case 2. What else? Let me have case. Let me just put in, yeah, just like that. Let me have case 3. Just like that. Let me have it just case 3 here. So what I'm saying is this is the switch statement, right? We have got the switch keyword, and as it's a method here, and you pass So just like, so it's just like a method, the switch statement. It's just a method which takes a parameter here. So what it means is if I run this, I'm going to get nothing. Why? Because I've put a 0 here. So there's no case here and the 0. If I put 2, you are going to see what is going to happen. I'm going to have case 2 and case 3. Why? Because it will look here, this is case 2 in choice. So yeah, it is going to run case 2. But because there's no break, it is going to keep on running everything till the end of this switch statement. So you need to put a break here so that it will only break out of the switch statement. When it comes here to break out of the switch statement, which means it is going to start execution maybe after here. If I say, so this is out. If I say, all right, I'm just out of a method. Okay, am I not in the main method? Okay, I'm in the main method. So what's the issue there? All right, let me just print it here. Out of switch, right? So this is how the break is going to work out of switch. So as immediately as it finish the case 2, it will just go out of switch just like that. So that's the need of the keyword break. So you need to break every what? Every case. So that if it executes that case, if I put 1 here, you see that because we do not have a break here, it is going to run case 1 and case 2 just like that, and then out of switch. So you need to put a break here. Just like that. You need to put a break, just like that. Is it not that simple, guys? It's very, very simple. And then what else? There was some that I didn't. Okay, okay. I just need to mention the default case. The default, just need to mention a default case. This one always execute whenever you have, you do not have the input which is matching the case, right? So I can say that maybe wrong input or whatever, or a wrong choice, right? Wrong choice, just like that. That's what it means. If you put something like a 0 here, you see that. So there's no need of also breaking the default. If you put the default at last, right? So you see wrong choice and then out of the switch statement, just like that. So guys, it's not always a must to put a default at the end. You can put default even in here, but if you put default in this, within this case, you need to break that default. But if you put default at the end, you don't need to break. There's no need of breaking that default, but you can still use break, no problem. But we are saying there's no need of breaking that because it's the last case that we have, so there's no need of breaking it. So, but you can also break it, no problem. So this is a switch statement. I don't know if you've got some problems with the switch statement. It seems like as if everything is okay, right? So if everything is okay, let me, it's now 2 hours. We're supposed to finish this at what what was the time that we're supposed to finish this?
1 p.m.
At 1. Okay, okay. Let me try to push so that we can finish this, because next we needed to make sure that we do not start at do need to make sure that do not start at these basics, you know. We need to cover this, but I don't know what happened with my stream. It was sorry, I'm exposing something which I do not supposed to expose. I don't know what happened to my stream. I'm sure it's my network, but it seems like it's going on everything as well. But let me just check it here. I don't know what is happening with my stream. Just wait a little bit. I don't know what's happening. We might need to use these things later on. So I just need to familiarize myself with them so that you can use them later when you want to do them. It seems like the live stream is offline here. So I don't know what happened, but it was supposed to work. But I don't know what happened to this stream. Maybe the network is the challenge is with my network, but now it's up. So maybe I'm supposed to have some patience with it. But anyway, let's look at what's the next thing. Let's look at Java while loop. Let's look at a while loop. So these are some of the basics that you need to understand, guys. While loop, you've been doing it for loop, while loop, to while loop, you've been doing it in C, C++, but let's have a look at it. Let's have a look at it. Loops can execute a block of code as long as a specified condition is reached. So loops are handy because they save time, reduce errors, and they make code more readable. So using the concept of loop is very, very important. Just imagine you want to print some numbers from 1 to 10. You need to write system.out.println 10 times. But if you can use a loop, you can just write the for loop or the while loop, and you just put one line statement, and then it can be looped or iterated just like that 10 times, just like that. Just imagine you want to repeat something 1,000 times. So these loops are there to save you from such things. So the while loop loops through a block of code as long as a specified condition is true. So here we have one condition, and if that condition is true, we are fine. Just like that. If that condition is true, we are fine. Just like that. So let's look at a Java while loop. Let's take a look at Java while loop. Just like this. While condition, and then you do what you want in the block. So when you are using a while loop, I think you need to just have something like a well understanding on how can you make this condition false, or how can you make this while loop terminate. Remember, it will execute forever. Just like that, it will execute forever. So you need to make sure that it will terminate. Somewhere it is going to terminate. If you do it, I'm afraid if I can do it, my machine maybe will freeze also. I don't know if it can, because I'm doing a lot of the streaming and what. I hope it will not do that, because here I'm streaming and what. But let me just have, let me just sample it, what I'm talking about. Let me just come here. Want to say what? Okay, let me come here. And I'm going to have a while loop just like this. While loop. You are saying, while it is true, do something. And when that condition is now false, then stop. That's the purpose of this while loop. If the condition is true, keep on doing this. But if it is false, please stop there. So if I print out true here, it is going to keep on printing true. Why? Because I've put the condition as true. So in other words, here you need to put a condition, and a condition is just an expression that you put there, which will result into either true or false. So it must be of Boolean type, right? That's what I'm trying to say there. So that expression, if it is true, it will always execute what is between these two blocks, which is the while loop block, this one, between these two blocks, which is inside here. So if I run this, I'm going to get true. And if you look at it, it is always printing true. And you see this, it is always printing true, just like that. Why? Because it is not going to be false, because I've hard coded and put a true there. Luckily, I stopped it, just like that. So it will keep on repeating true. And if you look at it, I don't know if it printed how many times. Let me just put maybe int I plus plus. I can't declare. Okay, this is a bad idea. Bad idea at all. Let me just have an int I equal to 0. I want you to see something. Let me just put I plus plus just like this. I plus plus is as good as I'm incrementing I by 1, which means I'm adding a 1 to I. Let me just put it here, just down below here. And then I'm going to put true, and then I'm going to add something here, guys, which is I. What it means, it is going to print true 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I want you to see that it will keep on looping. You see, how many truths have we printed? You see, this is how powerful is a computer. If you look at it, these are all the loops that we are running. These are the iterations, right, that we are executing. And we are incrementing I by 1. So we have started when I is equal to 0, and now we are up to this number, right, in seconds, right? So you need to control these iterations. If you want it to just run for up to I is equal to 10, you need to put a condition here which will result at false when I is equal to 10, just like that. So it will only not execute the while loop if this one is false. If you look at it, I'm getting an error because it's, if you look at it, unreachable code. The error is that this code will never run if I put this false here. So you are writing the unreachable code, right? So I need to put a condition like if I is less than or equal to 10. Just keep on doing this. What it means is that whenever I is less than or equal to 10, I'm always going to print out this. But whenever I is now greater than 10, please stop there. So this is a while loop. So I can print, if you look at, I've printed from 0 to what? From 0 to 10, just like that. So this is a while loop, guys. That's how it works. And you need a code which makes your condition false at a later stage. If you look at it, I've put I plus plus, just like this. And if you look at it, this condition is going to be false whenever I is greater than 10. Just like that. So you need something here which you makes that what? False. Don't know if it is making some sense, but that's what you can do with the while loop. I don't know if I've got some questions on a while loop, but that's basically, that's how it works. So if there are no questions, contributions, seems like everyone is quite okay with all this. Let's have a quick look at a while loop, not a do while loop, sorry, a do while loop. So guys, if you have got a next tutorial, please alert me so that I will know. If you have got another tutorial today, so that because I scheduled it to 1, but I'm seeing that at 1 I will not be able to finish this. Do you have any tutorial maybe before 2? Hello, guys.
No, we don't have any tutorial.
Okay, thank you for that. Thank you for that. So allow me to go over that time, because I am sure after this tutorial we have maybe some days, 4 days or so without meeting. So I think let me just make use of this time. So the do while loop, let's look at a do while loop in Java. So the do while loop is just like the while loop, but only that this one will make sure that the loop execute at least once. Why? Because it will first execute the block of code and then it will check the condition. So where we're saying while, then we check the condition and we do something. Now we are saying first you do this and then later on check the condition. That's the do while loop. So this loop will execute the code block once before checking if the condition is true. Then it will repeat the loop as long as the condition is true, just like that. So it's do without a condition, and then you put while and you put the condition there, just like that. So, excuse me, if you look at it, we are saying int I is equal to 0, then we print the value of I, and then we increment I by 1, and then we check if I is less than 5, and then we do this. So it's like do this where I is less than 5. So the first thing is to do this task, and then you check your condition. You do this task again, you check your condition, just like that. So there are some code which actually prompts you to use this do while loop. Just to think of a menu-based program where you want to ask a certain user after doing some task, do you want to continue? If you want to continue, do this, else do this, something like that. You can use a do while loop. For this one, you can use it whenever you want to, maybe a password. You can put someone in a loop, and they say if you put correct password, that's where you can continue. But if you do it 3 times, we block you. So you can use this while loop. Someone will be in this loop until you either input the correct password. That's the while loop that I'm talking about. Just like that. So let's look at this do while loop. It's as good as we are now using a do statement here. Instead of having this while, remove this while here. And you put a do. And after that, we put the while here. And you need to terminate this one, guys. So if you look at it, the condition is no longer here, but it's now here. And they're saying do this first and check the condition later. So if I run this, what I'm going to get is still the same result, still the same output. But only that we are guaranteed that this one's going to execute once. And then after that, we check the condition, right? And you do this. But I can even, instead of doing this, I can say maybe printing to screen sys out. Let me say just end. Maybe let me just enter to continue. Or let me just enter any number to continue. Any number to continue. And I'm gonna or 10 to exit, right? I'm saying please enter any number to continue, but if you want to exit this, enter 10, right? And then here I'll put while I is not equal to 10, which means if you put any number which is equal to 10, please keep on doing this. But whenever I is equal to 10, whenever I is not equal to 10, please break out of this while loop, which means I need to take the input from the user. And taking the input from the user, guys, use what we call a scanner object, which is from the scanner class. So let me just, sorry, I do not need to declare it in here. It's a bad idea. Let me just declare up here where I was declaring objects. So I say scanner, maybe input. So it's as good, it's a class which was already implemented. So you declare its object like the way you declare the object of the class student that you have created, just like that, just like that. So take it as a class which is already there, and it have got some methods which are already there that we want to use. So we just import it to our project and we use it. So these are the class libraries that we're talking about, which are in the JRE, the Java Runtime Environment. So scanner input is equals to new scanner. The capital letter A, suppose it's a name of what? And you pass something here, which is system.in, right? Which means you are taking the input from the system, which is input system, just like that. And you need to import it. That's why I'm getting this error. I need to import it. Import the scanner, which is here java.util.scanner class. So I have it, so I can use it in here. So now the next thing is I can say my I is equals to input dot next, just as simple as that. Next int, because I want to take an integer which is next integer, so I use next int. Next int is a method which is in the scanner object, so I'm in the scanner class, so I've created a scanner object called input, so I can use this method. I can just use it because it's already there, right? So if I run this, it is going to say true 0, which means it will print when I is equal to 0, so it say true 0. And the next thing, it to wait for input. You say enter any number to continue or 10 to exit. So if I want to continue, I can put 5. And you see it will loop true 5. Why? Because for I've put 5. And then to ask you enter any number to continue. So if I put any number there, which is not 10, it will keep on doing this. But if I put 10, it will just terminate. Just like that, nothing more. You are seeing the way that I'm using this do while loop. Do this task where this is something, right? And I ask it just like that. You can do the same with a while loop, but this is a do. This is a do while loop. So you are guaranteed that this is going to execute at least once, and then the condition now will take over, just like that. I don't know if I've got some questions on this one. Do I have any questions on this one? So if I do not have questions, the record what it is still recording. Okay. So if I do not have questions, let me just quickly move on to a for loop. For a for loop, guys, this one is the one that you mostly use because of its powerful on terms of nesting. You can nest for loops so easily and use them to do a lot of things. So I'm sure this is the loop that we are well versed with, and you are used to it. So the Java for loop is used to iterate a part of the program several times. If the numbers of iteration is fixed, it is recommended to use for loop. So whenever you've got a fixed number of iteration, you can use a for loop. It is different from a do while loop when you do not have at least the exact number to use. But whenever you've got exact number of iterations that you want, please go for a for loop. For a while loop, use it whenever you just know the condition, but you do not know the exact number, right? But you know that whenever this condition is true, I want to keep on doing this. But when it comes false, please do this. That's where you use the while loop. But whenever you know the exact number of the loops that you want, the iterations that you want to run, please go for a for loop, because you can actually model it very well and very easy, just like that. So a symbol for loop is the same as the C and the C++ for loop. We can initialize the variable, check condition, and increment or decrement value. So we've got three things just like that. So we have got three things. The first thing is to initialize the variable, check the condition, and then you increment or decrement it. So these are the statements that you'll be having. So if a loop takes three statements, the first statement, the second statement, and the third statement. That's why I see we put a semicolon, we terminate because it's a statement. So you'll be allowed even here to declare here int I is equal to 0 or I is equal to 0, just like that. So this is a for loop. It's just the same like the for loop that you know. Nothing new. Int I is equal to 0 is the first statement for initializing I to 0. I is less than 5. It will make sure that it will check this condition and it will execute here if I is less than 0. And after executing this, it will increment I by 1. Then it will keep on repeating this. So maybe I can just have a symbol, a for loop, and then I'll demonstrate that. I know some of you forget these things. So because I already have an int I is equal to 0 here, so I do not need to declare it. Maybe what I need, I just need to initialize it. Let me just have an int j there. So equal to 0. J must be less than. Let's start with a 3. And then j plus plus. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to print out Yes, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to print out. Maybe let me just print out J. All right, let me just print out J. Let's see what is going to happen there. I'm going to have 0, 1, 2, just like that. Why 0, 1, 2? Let's just produce this output, which is these are 3 iterations, right? Let's just try to produce this output. Sorry. So what is happening is that if you look at this, what is happening is that at the first statement is there for initialization. So we only run it once. And then on other iterations, we do not check on it, right? So it's initialization. So you are putting a 0, we are declaring initializing J with a 0. The next thing that you do, you come here, you check if your J is less than 3. Is it 0 less than 3? Yes. The next thing you come here, you print the value of J. That's why you have got this first 0. After printing this, because you've reached the end of the for loop block, you will come here and increment J by 1. So 0 plus 1, you get a 1. The next thing, you check the condition. You do not go back here, but you do not go back here, but only check the conditions. Is it 1 less than 3? Yes. Then print 1. That's why you have this. And you've reached the end of this for loop. You increment by 1, you get a 2. 2 less than 3? Yes. Print that 2. That's why you have this one. After that, you increment J by 1, you get a 3. 3, is it less than 3? No. So you just get a false and nothing happens. Just like that, guys. Then the for loop, boom, it's actually finished executing. It's what? It's iteration. So it's as good as we know that we want to print from I is equal to 0 up to I is equal to 3. From J is equal to 0 up to J is equal to 3. That's why you've gone for this for loop, right? Just like that. And that's how you can moderate and use it. This is the for loop, and that's how it works. I don't know if there is anyone with a problem with the for loop. The problem with the for loop. Anyone with a problem with the for loop? What about the nested for loops? The nested for loops. It seems like everyone is okay with the nested for loops, but because I know some. Let me just have these nested for loops. What I want to do here is very simple. I want to have an I. Let me just take this one. Before that, let me just paste this one in here. Now, what I want to do is very simple. I want to take this and put it here. And I, let me say I must be less than 3. And then I plus plus. This is a nested for loop. So what I want to do is, here let me say, I want to print, it's very, very simple what I want to do. I'm trying to making it very, very easy. Let me just this out. All right. So here I just want to print so that we can see that we are in the inner for loop. I want to say inner loop. And then I will do the same for the outer loop so that you see that now you are on the outer loop. We are out of the, then I'll say outer loop. And then I'm just going to print J. Outer loop. To make it easier, and let me just do it here. I just want to do it once so that we just have 3 things here. I just want to make it easier for you to see. Yeah, this is the output. Inner loop, 0, outer loop, then over there, inner loop, then 1, outer loop, inner loop, then 2, then outer loop. What is happening here, guys, is very, very simple if you try to follow it. You've got this. Yeah, I think this is the best way that you can see it so easily. Sorry. I just trying to make it very, very clear. All right. This is the inner for loop, right? And then this is the outer for loop. If you look at it, just like this. So on the inner for loop, if you look at this inner for loop, what we are doing is we are just looping once. So I want to add someone who is in the loop. Okay. So if you look at this, all right, so if you look at this, there's this outer for loop, and this one executes independently of this one, and this one also executes depending on the iterations of the outer side loop. So what is happening is that this one will loop 3 times. 0 1 2, yes, this one will loop just once, the inner loop. So what is happening is that we are checking here, is j equal to 0, is 0 less than 3, yes, and j is equal to 0, right? And then we get in here when j is equal to 0, and we say I is equal to 0. We check, is it 0 less than 1, yes, and then we print this inner loop that we have here, and we print the value of j because j is equal to 0, so we are going to get a 0. After that, we increment I by 1, and is it 1 less than 1? No, so it will go out of this inner loop and print this statement called what? Outer loop. That's why we have got this thing, just like this output. This is what we are doing. So this inner loop, we have run this one once, and then in here we've got executed this iteration at least just once, and it will execute until it's finished its iterations, just like that. If we executed this when I is equal to 0, and then increment 1, is it less than 1? No, so you are not going to execute. That's why you are going to run this. After that, you increment j by 1, because j is equal to 0. We are going to get your j as 1, and then is it 1 less than 3? Yes, so you get in again. And once you get in, you bump into another for loop. And now, because we are running another iteration, this for loop is going to start as if it wasn't executed before. And we are going to start at I is equal to 0. 0 is it less than this one? Yes. And you print inner loop again, which is this part again, this inner loop. You printed this inner loop, and you print the value of j, which is 1. After that, you increment I by 1. Is it 1 less than 1? No. So you are going to get a false, and you cannot execute this for loop anymore, and you go out, you print this outer loop here, and after that, since you have reached the end of the for loop, you go here, you increment, you get a what? A 2. 2, is it less than this one? Yes. And then you get in, you test again this. That's why you print inner loop and 2, then outer loop. After that, j is now equal to 3 here. 3, is it less than 3? No. And then we go out of the outer loop. If you go out of the outer loop, it means you are not going to get into the inner loop, just like that. So this is how you can use the nested loops. I was just trying to make it easier for you. If I put 3 here, you are going to see that the output is going to be like this. You are going to print inner loop 0 0 3 times. Why? Because you'll be printing the value of j, which is 0, in this inner loop. So you repeat it to print this one 3 times, and then you increment this by 1, you print this 3 times, you increment this by 1, you print this again 3 times, until you pana j is equal to 2, just like that. And you reach j is equal to 3, it will terminate, and it will go out of the inner loop. I don't know if it is if you get it well, but this is what you can do with the nested loops. So those are the nested loops. So let's look at encapsulation. Let's look at encapsulation, and then you left it here. Then on the next tutorial, we are going to do all the remaining object-oriented programming concepts and the other related topics, threading and garbage collection, and whatever I feel you need it before exams, because I cannot have another tutorial. Just 2 tutorials must be enough for us. Otherwise, anything else must be asked in our groups or whatever, any form that I can assist, but not a tutorial. All right, so let's look at the Java object-oriented programming, what we call encapsulation in Java. Let's look at encapsulation in Java. So guys, this what we're doing is object-oriented programming in Java. We are doing object-oriented programming in Java, which is a very, very important which is a very, very important programming language to us, and also oriented concepts, they are very, very important when it comes to programming. Why? They avoid you writing codes repeatedly. There's what we call code reuse. There's issue of hiding data hiding. We'll talk about it again. So there are a lot of things which are very, very useful when it comes to object-oriented programming that you can make use of. So this is one of the concepts in object-oriented programming in Java. So we are doing all these things for you to be able to understand object-oriented programming in Java. And we only have 4 concepts, which is encapsulation, abstraction, inheritance, and polymorphism, right? So in other words, guys, if you cannot get well along with the Java, please make sure that you know those 4 concepts: abstraction, encapsulation, inheritance, and polymorphism. Because those are the core concept of object-oriented programming, whether in Java, in Python, or whatever, or in C++, because C++ is also an object-oriented programming language. So those are the 4 concepts. So you just need to know each and every of them in and out, and how to do it in Java, because we are using Java. That's what it is. So let's look at the encapsulation. So encapsulation is defined as the wrapping up of data under a single unit, which is called a class in Java. So remember, before I've said Java is a class-based and object-oriented programming language. So I need to add someone who's in the loop. So what it means is, so I think it actually stopped again. I think this is the issue of network. So what I was saying is, before I've said that everything in Java is an object and everything is a class, or you cannot create a project without a class in Java, right? So when I look at encapsulation, the whole concept is around the class and the object. We are wrapping up the data under a single unit, which is called what? A class. So it's as good as this one. We are talking about data binding. When you are talking about encapsulation, we have got a class which have got what we call a what? But properties, which are instance variables that we're talking about, and it have got some methods which are the behaviors. So you are wrapping up into a single unit, which you call an object, right? And the binding, so you are binding the properties and the behavior together and make it a single unit, right? So that's what we are calling what? Encapsulation. So that we can do hiding the data, we can hide the data from others, right? We can hide the implementation from others, but the object itself can access everything and do everything that it wants, right? Because it belongs to that class. Are you seeing it? So it is the mechanism that binds together code and the data which manipulates it. So encapsulation is mostly on data binding. So encapsulation can be achieved by declaring all the variables in the class as private and writing public methods in the class to set and get the values of variables. Simple. If you want to achieve encapsulation in Java, you need to create your variables as private and access them via methods that you can maybe make public. Also, you can do it with interfaces to achieve a full encapsulation. I'm not going to talk about that. Let's just for now, let's stick to what I think is very simple for you. But what you can do for encapsulation, you just need to make sure that you can make the data members or the properties private and use the getters and the setters. So in other words, you'll be now having more control of your code. Just imagine in a setup where you are at a company and you are all given some modules to do, right? Modules as when you are doing development, software development, you might be asked to go, maybe it's a banking system, right? Someone might be asked to go and create some code which do maybe checking account balance, withdrawal, what, and someone will be asked to go and do the code which you'll be doing, the user management, creating accounts for clients, something like that, right? But if you look at it, maybe the class that you are going to create and the class which is going to be created by another person, they're going to need to interact, right? To use some of the code there. So if that person wants your code, you must make sure that, are you willing to give that person access to your code, right? So in other words, with encapsulation now, you can expose only what you want to expose and hide everything within your code, just like that. That's what you are talking about. So if you make your data members or your properties private, and then now you select which ones do I need to give access to. So you can use the getters and setter methods, right? Which means someone can actually get access to that class and actually use a setter method to manipulate the data, and actually a getter method to get the value from your data, just like that, right? So that's all about encapsulation, and that's what you need to know. How to achieve it, this is how you achieve it. It is more defined with the setter and the getter method. Like here, we've got private string name, private int age, just like that. So public string get name, which is now a getter method. This getter method is now taking this name and give it to someone who want to what? To use that value. If you make this private, it means that person cannot have an access. Only you can have access to this one. That's what it means. We've done this access modifiers. We've seen that if it is private, no other class can use it, whether they're in the same folder or what, they cannot use it. That's what it is, was it is private. Even through inheritance, they cannot they cannot use it, right? That's what it means. And I want to add someone who is in the lobby. So that's what it is. That's what I was talking about. Sorry. So this actually stopped again. I don't know what happened here. Don't know what is happening with my streaming. I'm sure I've got, I'm sure it's only network which is causing that. It's only network which is causing that. I was still live. I don't know why I stopped it. I was still live. Okay. But anyway, it is still backward. I don't know why. It's still backward. Okay, so guys, let's I was explaining, okay, this one. Let me just show you quickly. Let me just quickly show you how can you do it. I've got a lot of things I hope I want to create. All right. Want to use these getters and setters methods, right? Maybe I need this as well. All right. Let me remove all these things. These are the constructors. So I've done a lot of things. We've learned a lot of things. So guys, I've shared this. All right, I'll share this recording with you so that you can go through it if you want. Try to make sure that I'll do it this way. All right. So what you can do, guys, what I want to demonstrate is the getters and what if you need to make all this private, right? Right, to make them private. And the next thing, you need to provide some methods which are getters and setters methods. And there's some that you need to know. If it is a setter method, it needs to take something. Like what you have been doing, the parameterized constructor, you need to pass some parameters there. So let's start with some setter methods there. So if I want to set maybe this string name, what I need to do is to have a public method, and I will say set name, right? And I'll put this and this, and then inside here, I need, and it must be a void method. Sorry, it must be a void method. So it's public void set name. And after this, what do I need to do, guys? I need to pass a string, right? And let me just call it name. For now, I think there's something that I didn't explain, right? When I said let me just put in here so that I can explain what is happening here. All right. So guys, if I do this, what it means, this name and this name, these are the same thing, right? The value that you're going to pass is going to be passed here, and then it will pass here, then it will go to this variable name for that object. Remember, when you're creating an object, it's as good as you are creating separate classes. So a separate copy of this class, which means one object will maintain its own data members and its own methods. Another object which will be maintaining that. So whenever you have S1, also S1 have got these properties, and S2 have got also these what properties. That's what it means. So when I say this dot name, it means if I'm saying S1 dot set name, I will be referring to the name of the S1 object. So this keyword will be referring to the object which is currently executing that method, right? You will be asked sometimes what this keyword mean in Java. That's what it is. It will be referring to that object, current object, which will be executing that method, just like that. Also, you can use it to differentiate between these local variables. If you look at it, now it knows that the name that I'm talking about here is this name, not this name, right? Just like that. So it removes that confusion, just like that. So this is what I was supposed to explain that I said I didn't explain. Also, the name of the setter method, guys, we use set keyword, and then you put the name of the thing that you want to set. So it's set name, and the way you name your method, small letter S, and all the inner words we start with capital letter. If it's set name with small letter S and capital letter N, just like that. And this is all what you need to do. It's a void method. It doesn't return anything. We use it to set this variable. So it's as good as we're exposing this method so that a person can manipulate can manipulate only that one data member that we want that person to manipulate. So I can also do the same. Maybe for age, let me just do this same for what? For age, then I'll say set age, just like that, right? And then here, because age is an integer, I'll say int age, and then I'll say this dot age be equal to this age that you are passing, just like that. For the getter methods, guys, you want to get a value and use it, so it must return something, and that something is of type of the value that you want. So I can have another public method for getter methods, and it will use get keyword. So because I need to return something, if I want to get a name because it's a string type, I will say public string, then get name, right? After getting name, just like this. I do not pass anything here because I just want to get the name, right? So I need to return this dot name, right? And I need to put a return statement here. Sorry, return this dot name. So this is a getter method, just like that. No parameters, nothing. Just you return the name that you want, which means if you call this method, it is just going to give the name of that object as it is, just as easy as that. So I can do the same for the what? For the age public, because it's an integer in the age. Sorry, not age, get age. Just like this. So we look also at these things, guys, when you are coding. Make sure that you follow such things, right? You see it when you are using predefined classes and the methods of those classes, they will be in this format. So you need to be used to this. Otherwise, you always get an error when you are trying to use those predefined methods from the class which are already available in Java. So if you are used to this, you know that if it is a method, it must start with a, with a small letter, right? Just like that. So let me just say return this dot age, just like that. So it means if I can go to another class or another folder, because I've got this public, I can always use them, right? And I can always use the methods, these methods, because they are public, right? And since I can use them, which means I can also get access to these ones which are private. So in other words, it's as good as if you do not want this one to be accessed, you do not need to put these getters as public, you just need to make them private. Now you have a control over them, right? That's what we are saying. So if I say s1 dot set I've got the set age there. I can set the age to what? To 30, right? After doing this, I can actually print out, right? This shortcut to do it. I can say S1 dot get age. I want to get the age that I've put there. And if I do this, I'll get 30. Why? Because this set age is going to, I'm passing 30, and this 30 is coming here and is coming here and is being set here to this edge, which was 10 before. And because I was using S1, this will be referring to the current object, which was executing this, which is the S1 code, the set edge. That's why I've set the edge in S1. If I try to use S2 here to print, you are going to see that I'm not going to get a 30, but I'll get a 10. Why? Because I've only changed the edge for S1, not for S2. I don't know if you are getting. So this keyword is referring to the current object executing that method or invoking that method, just like that. So that's why here I'm getting a what? A third. So this is all about the set and the get. So which means anyone now can actually access the edge data member either to manipulate it or to read it. So now you see you've got a greater control. You can even say, for you, I just want you to only read, which means you will not provide this setter method. You only provide this get method, which is the person will now have only read only data member or a variable, read only variable. Or you can just say, I just want you to be able to manipulate. You cannot read what's there. Are you seeing it? You cannot provide the get edge. You just provide the setter there. The person can just set. That's what it is within encapsulation. We are now having more control on what can be done. I don't know if I've got, there's a hand by Misty Sogela. You want to say something? Ella? Okay, I think maybe it was a mistake or so. Okay, but others, do you have any questions or contributions here? Do you have any questions or contributions? Okay, if you do not have questions, this is actually the end of this tutorial. Maybe what I need to do is to share some. There are some of the slides that I will share in the group. I don't know if they are on the portal, but I need to share them. I've shared them in our group. Remind me to share them. I'm thinking it now that maybe there are some slides which are not on portal on other topics. So I will share with you. Okay, guys, this is all what I wanted us to do. This is what I wanted us to do. So I just want to stop the streaming. So this is all what we wanted to do. So for now, I would want to take questions if there are questions. Also to take some contributions as well. Let me stop the recording as well. I do not want to record all these things. All right. So guys,